The P-40, aka the Warhawk, with the distinctive shark's mouth painted on its nose, has always been one of the most iconic fighters of World War II. Many people don't know that it's also the most controversial. Many consider the Curtiss P-40 to be sluggish and outmoded from the start. Its early position in Pacific defense has been overstated. The Warhawk was, in reality, a considerably superior fighter than most people thought. There are three main reasons for this misconception. For one, the P-40 was based on an older aircraft, the P-36. Although it had a new front half and a new liquid-cooled Allison V12 engine, the rest of the plane was identical to the P-36. For this reason, the P-40 was considered pretty obsolete right from the start. World War II magazine cites the F-4F Wildcat, another naval aircraft of the time, as a superior opponent for the Zero because of its biplane design. Obviously, that's something not often discussed by experts. The P-40's flaws were misreported to the point where it seemed like it would never be able to defeat an enemy plane. Although it couldn't outmaneuver the Zero, neither could the Spitfire, Hurricane, Lightning, Thunderbolt, Mustang, Wildcat, or Corsair, but that's never mentioned. This is the story of the most iconic warbird of World War II. In 1937, the seed of an idea for the P-40 was planted, right about when U.S. authorities realized the gravity of the situation. The Nazis were gearing up to obliterate Europe while the Japanese nibbled at China's borders. It was clear to U.S. policymakers that neutrality couldn't be maintained and that a strong military presence was necessary. Because of that, the Army Air Corps issued a specification for a new fighter that could be produced quickly. Many firms entered the fray, each with its own unique aircraft concept. Bell exhibited its P-39, Lockheed brought its P-38, and Curtiss presented their P-40. Competitors were outraged when Curtiss was awarded the contract. They considered the P-40 obsolete because it was based on an outdated design. As previously explained, from the firewall back, it was the same as the previous P-36, but the engine and other vital components were new, which increased performance dramatically. But the military required a fail-safe design. The Lockheed P-38's twin engines were too innovative to ensure the plane's success. It probably didn't help when the P-38 prototype crashed. One drawback to the P-38 was that it was not designed to be mass-produced. It was designed as a special-purpose high-altitude interceptor. It was unlikely to mass-produce enough P-38s in time. The Army also did not consider the inevitable need for large numbers of high-altitude aircraft. They saw the P-40 as ideal for ground support, which they believed to be the primary role of a fighter. Aside from that, had the Army gone with the P-38, American pilots would have been at a disadvantage against the more agile Japanese Zero, and the United States would suffer just as many casualties as it did with the P-40. The P-40 was often considered to be both sluggish and not maneuverable. As a matter of fact, the P-40 showed impressive maneuverability in battle against a number of aircraft. The P-40 was a formidable, low-altitude fighter owing to its sturdy construction, strong armament, rapid rate of fire, and dive speed. The Japanese pilots considered the Warhawk to be their most deadly low-altitude rival. They ranked the F-4U Corsair first overall and the P-38 Lightning first in high-altitude flight. The main disadvantage of the P-40 was its poor climb rate, and ascending to escape an enemy was considered suicide. In 1940, the P-40 received approval from the Army Air Corps and moved quickly after production and delivery to other airfields. New planes were a welcome addition to the fleet, and the pilots there were happy to receive them. The British were also given P-40s, and they flew them against the famed Messerschmitt Bf-109. When pitted against the famed German fighter, the Tomahawk, as the British nicknamed the earlier P-40 versions, fared effectively. In fact, the British wanted to replace their old Hurricanes with new P-40s. It had a top speed of 362 miles per hour at 15,000 feet and a 2.4-minute climb to 5,000 feet. It had a maximum of 850 miles of range at 207 miles per hour with a drop tank. In terms of firepower, it had 6 50 cal wing-mounted machine guns. Empty weight was 6,900 pounds, loaded weight 8,400 pounds, span 37 feet 4 inches with a length of 31 feet and 9 inches, a height of 12 feet 4 inches, and a total wing area of 236 square feet. On December 7, 1941, a large Japanese air armada attacked the U.S. Navy base at Pearl Harbor and the nearby airfields. This was the first time an American P-40 was used to protect the homeland. However, hardly any American fighters made it into the air before they were shot down. George Welch and Kenneth Taylor, two of the few survivors, were the two pilots that took to the air and downed many Japanese aircraft. From that point on, P-40 pilots were saddled with a heavy burden. Winning the war needed the United States to achieve air supremacy against the Japanese. If not, their bombers could freely plow into Allied ships and territory. The Warhawk has been painted in some accounts as the worst conceivable fighter for the task at hand. Yet, it was able to do just that for the first 2 years of the Pacific War and continued to help doing so until the end of the war. The American mercenary group, the Flying Tigers, gained initial notoriety for using the P-40. After barely 6 months of fighting, the Flying Tigers had downed 297 confirmed enemy aircraft and another 153 unconfirmed, with only 12 planes lost. Of their 99 P-40s, 57 were rendered unflyable by battle damage, pilot mistakes, maintenance issues, or simple wear and tear. Although the AVG was disbanded, the P-40's participation in China did not stop there. The Army sent modernized P-40 aircraft and new pilots to establish the China Air Task Force. Chennault, now a brigadier general, tried his best to make it the most effective outfit possible. The rookie pilots were put in a tough position when they landed in China. With the massive Himalayan mountains blocking most supplies, they were trapped in an unreachable theater with little hope of rescue. Moreover, the Japanese outnumbered them by a factor of more than 3 to 1. More Japanese aircraft were stationed at a single airfield than were part of the China Air Task Force's whole Warhawk force. It seems like in every fight they were in, they were massively outnumbered. In one such engagement, 21 P-40s tangled with 45 Oscars. The result was 27 enemy aircraft shot down with no losses. It was a major victory for the China Air Task Force. Eventually, however, the China Air Task Force lost the war not because of Japanese aircraft, but because of a shortage of supplies, replacement parts, and the spread of disease. By the end, just a few of their P-40s could take off. By the time it was dissolved on March 19, 1943, the China Air Task Force had destroyed 149 enemy planes, with another 86 being deemed probable, while suffering just 16 losses. These kinds of battle victories were not limited to the Pacific Theater. In Italy, the 325th Fighter Group, or the Checker-tailed Clan, had one of the finest kill-to-loss ratios of any fighter group in the European theater. With a yellow and black checkerboard gracing the tail of their P-40s, they flew many missions against overwhelming German forces and won most of the time. In 1943, the 325th won 2 key battles. On July 1st, 22 checker-tailed P-40s were making a fighter sweep over southern Italy when they were jumped by 40 Bf-109s. After a fierce air fight, half of the German planes were destroyed, while just 1 P-40 was lost. This is only a small sample of the Warhawk's success in aerial warfare. Consider the New Zealand Air Force's record: 99 confirmed kills and 14 possible for only 20 P-40s lost in combat. Still, the P-40 was being replaced by newer fighters by 1944, and production of the last variant, the P-40N, ended in December of that year. The last remaining P-40s were stationed in the China-Burma-India theater before the end of the war, and by 1945 all Warhawk squadrons in Europe had transitioned to the Mustang or Thunderbolt. There were a total of 13,738 P-40s produced during World War II, making it the third most prevalent American fighter plane. While World War II officially concluded in September of 1945, the P-40 service life continued for another decade. Even though the U.S. Army Air Force had decommissioned the P-40 by that point, it saw service with the air forces of smaller countries far into the early 1950s. However, time and wear caught up with the old Warhorse and, along with its fellow piston engine aircraft, it had to give way to the jet engine age.